Hi there, welcome back to Bernina Club. As it's getting cooler, I thought I'd show you a couple of little wraps. So the first one is the Outlander Wrap, and I saw this from Britex Fabrics. It's very, very easy, very, very quick to make. However, they hand stitch their lace on the edge. We are not going to do that because we have Berninas and we have this wonderful edge stitch foot number 10, which makes life really, really easy. So we're going to use this today to sew on our lace. So the finished garment is this lovely wrap here, and we've got these beautiful laces in at work and all sorts of colours, and they're just a really, really nice lace. Probably would never fray, but I do use fray check on the edge of the lace, which I'll show you shortly. So I've actually sewn this in the seam when I've sewn my backing on. And you can back it with satin, you can back it with silk, you can back it with self fabric, whatever you like. I've chosen to use this one on here, and this is a taffeta lining for this one, so it's nice and silky. Reason being, Mum can wear this over jerseys and the wool fabric won't cling to the wool jersey. And it sits up like this, so it's quite an elegant one. If you wanted to, you could put darts in the shoulders and you could make it more fitting around the neck. Your choice. And how I finish this off is I've used a large dome and a button just for looks. You could use anything you like, but I thought that'd be nice and easy for Mum to do. So it kind of just sits up like that. Just a really nice wrap. Now it's only 50 centimetres by 150 centimetres. So if the fabric's 150 wide, you're only buying half a metre of fabric. So it's a very cheap wrap to make as well, but it's a very nice finished result. So it's just a nice little shrug to put over. Now, so when you are choosing your lace, make sure that you allow enough to fold back one whole section like that, and then now that that's dry, I will actually on here just hand tack that to that one so it won't flap open or she'll catch a ring on it. I'll just hand tack those together, and then that'll make it nice and tidy and it will wear really well. So when you're going to do something like this, you know, I've told you before that you can't get this here, which is your fray check, but you can buy stop fraying and it dries clear. So when you're using either product, oh, my whole middle's come out. When you're buying either product, you simply make sure the lid doesn't come out because otherwise it won't work. Mine has stuck to itself. So this is how, just try and get it out really gently, and then maybe get a pin to just get the other side of it. This one I've had for a very long time and it still works, but I don't want to get fray check all over me. So pop that back into there. There we go, fixed. And then sometimes on the fray check you get a little hard end on it. So just, I think that's done. Now all you do is you just simply run your fray check or your stop fraying on the end. Now be careful, there are imitation ones, and the problem with those is they dry milky. These ones dry clear, so you don't have to worry about seeing it when you're finished. So this is half a metre across, but I'm just showing you on a small piece so you can see what to do. So once you've done that, you need to find the right and wrong side of your lace, and I can see clearly that it is. So that whole piece will be folded back one whole section. So make sure you allow enough lace to do that. Now what I do is I get my half a metre of fabric and I lay it down and I put my lace the distance, so that's half an inch usually, that I'm going to sew a seam, and I do the same on the end here. And what I do is I just pin that on like that, and then come down here and then look at my lace and go, right, I've got to fold that back one whole pattern. So I cut it longer than my fabric, fray check that end, and fold that back the same. So if you're not sure, you can use your little sewing gauges, and you can measure your seam. So mine's 1 centimetre, and you can measure down 1 centimetre and make sure it's even all the way along. Okay, usually you can pretty much tell, and then this will be 1 centimetre here. So just make sure that your lace is on correctly. If you've got little clips, you can just clip that rather than using your pins, which makes it much easier than taking pins out. So the foot, remember, is the number 10 edge stitch foot, and I'm going to pop it on. Now you'll see clearly the reason why I'm using that in 1 minute. Okay, so I'm going to tell the machine I've got the correct foot on, because I need to with my machine, and I'm going to lay the bar of my foot along my lace, and I'm going to move my needle position 1, 2 clicks over, and I have got my jewel feet on, and now all I need to do is edge stitch this on. So I am just holding it at this stage. When I go and put my backing on, it will cover this row of stitching, and I'll move my needle position over further if I need to. But I'm just using my edge stitch foot to get a nice straight edge. I really don't need to back stitch it. It's going to be stitched on again in a minute. So the funny thing about this method is I don't use my edge stitch foot for the next step. I leave my needle position to the left and I use my number 1 foot, and it covers over my stitching. So it's a really easy method. So I'm just stitching this down, and all I'm doing is holding it. It's of no other consequence, it's just holding it in place. Tuck that little bit of lace down under there. There we go. And then just cut. So there is my lace stitched on. Now for this, so I stitched the lace on this one. For this, what you need to do now is get your backing fabric, and your backing fabric needs to be exactly the same size as your front. If you do not do that, then this fabric will bag and it won't sit really well. So it needs to be exactly the same. So I'll just give this a little iron because it's very creased, my little sample of fabric. And you want to make sure it's exactly the same. Now I've done a clear fabric so you can see it. So this is clearly the right side and that is clearly the wrong side because my stripes are very dominant. So this is right side to right side, and when I've ironed this, it is going to go right side to right side. So I'll just give it a quick little press because it's very, very creased. On one of my videos, somebody asked where I got my little iron from. This is a little Sunbeam iron, but we sell the Bowen irons at work, and they're a great little travel iron, and they fold up nice and small. Now, this one that I'm making has got salvages on it, and so I don't need to do a stay stitch where my opening is going to be, but this fabric doesn't have a salvage on it. And it is woven, but I'm still going to just show you what I do. Now you can see clearly that this is the right width, but the length isn't correct. So when you're doing it, make sure, I'm just going to cut this obviously because this is just a sample, but make sure everything is exactly the right size before you start. Okay. So what you would do, and I can leave this foot on to do it, is I would sew my little stay stitch. And it's just the area I'm going to turn it through. You know I do this all the time. So just do your little stay stitch. And then I will just put a couple of clips in here and a little clip in here. and then have a look where my stay stitch is and do the stay stitch on this side of the fabric as well, so that it's ready to turn through and it won't stretch. And I do also know where I'm starting and stopping. So there you go, that's all you do. Now the best part of this is I take this foot off and I put my standard foot back on. I leave my needle position to the left, and the row of stitching, I should have done it in a bright colour. The row of stitching I've done here, I'm running my foot along that row of stitching, and it's going to move and stitch on the left of it. So it's going to enclose all my lace, so it's going to sit nice and flat. All right, so I'm going to start round here. Cut off my edges, and you'll have this all pinned, and you can see I've pinned this to show you. You always pin with the heads of your pins facing out all the way around your garment, and you can see clearly where I've left my opening. Now this fabric has got quite a nasty selvage, so it's got lots of holes in here, so this seam here will be a little bit wider than my other seams because I want to enclose that, but I've allowed for that. Okay, so this is some fabric my sister had at home. She wanted me to make her a wrap, and so that's why I've got that one there. So I can see clearly here. I'll just put a pin so you can see, and I'll put a clip here so you can see. That's my opening. Okay, so then you just pin or clip. That one needs to be pinned because it's really, really slippery fabric. These ones are not slippery fabric, so I can just clearly clip these and I'll make it nice and easy. But you don't need to watch me sew around a whole big one, so that's why I thought I'll just do a little sample. It's exactly the same method, but make sure you pin really well when you're doing slippery ones. So I'm going to start from here. Actually, I'm just going to check my seam allowance. Ooh, don't get that caught. So my seam allowance is going to be, if I show you, here, this is my 1.5 seam allowance, and the next line to the left is your 1 centimetre seam allowance. You're going to run your fabric on that 1 centimetre seam allowance. And by doing that, then my foot will be running along that edge and the needle position will be to the left. So when I come down here, I know exactly what seam allowance I'm going to. I'm going to that 1 centimetre seam allowance, and it's taking it in just a little bit to allow for the lace. So I'm just going forwards, come down further, there. So just go forward, and you can reverse at this stage. Now, when you come down to your corner, you know you're going to do 1 stitch across your corner. So you come down, take your clip out, wait till it lifts up, do 1 stitch across the corner, and then turn. Okay, now I can see clearly that I've gone too far, and this is where everyone gets stuck. So what you do is put your needle up, lift your foot up, take your work out, go back to where you were. Don't try and go backwards and forwards and all those things. So go back to where you were, come back down, stop, 1 stitch across, stop and lift, and this time it's perfect. So you need to judge how far from that corner, and if you want to, use your little guide. Okay, so always, if you don't go far enough, make sure that you go that little bit further. And honestly, it really doesn't matter, but if you get into the habit of doing it right and learning, then you will always do it right. Well, nearly always do it right. So come down, lift up, 1 stitch. Look how beautiful even that is, but it's only a sample. And turn. You can see straight away you've done it in the right place. Okay. And you'll notice jewel feed. I'll definitely want jewel feed on this. If you haven't got jewel feed, use a walking foot, because this one is not having a silky fabric on the inside. It's having the velvet fabric on both sides, so it's going to move. So you can use a walking foot. But this is just so you can see exactly what you do. Oh, one thing. When you come to sewing this, make sure that your lace has not flipped out like this, that it's sitting flat. So when you come to sew this, you're not going to attach your lace in your seam. So what I like to do is I like to put a pin down beside my lace so I know that I'm not going to stitch it in. All right, I just put a pin down beside so I know I'm not going to stitch it in, because there's nothing worse than stitching in your lace. Well, you're not going to do it, so I've told you. So come down. When you come down to here, lift, oh, one more stitch, lift and across, and lift and across. Now my foot is running right along that row of stitching, and so I'm catching in my lace. So definitely no hand stitching of lace on my anything I do. And then I'm going to make sure that lace is tucked in. I'll pin it this way because I can see that I have tucked it in. Come across, stop, lift up, one stitch, go across, lift down. Oh, my lace is too close to the edge, but it is a scarf and no one is going to see that and you won't tell, so we're all good. So come up to your opening and backstitch, cut. I do not need to overlock around that. However, I will overlock around this because this fabric frays just by looking at it. So now all you do is you clip across your corners, there, there, and you can see, no you can't because it's all enclosed. Can't see anything. So if you're worried about your fabric fraying, this is when you would overlock it. And then you turn it through so you can see your stitching on your lining there and your stay stitching there, that little bit. And then turn it all through. And what I do is I get my corners and I find my point turner. This is the cutest little scarf, little wrap. And I very gently just push that through and then use handy dandy point turner and just push that up and push that up and give it a little tug to make sure that's sitting nice and flat. And can you see here, you know how I said I wouldn't catch the lace? Can you see here that lace is sitting nice and flat? And here I have actually caught the lace. Probably a good thing because I can show you what to do. And then push this one through and I'll take that back out and see what I've done. So make a mistake just so I can teach you not to do it. So you know how I pinned vertically? Should have pinned horizontally, which I normally do. So just make sure you push this out. You know I love to make mistakes so you learn. How many of these have I made and it's the first time I've done that? Excellent. Right. Now, so I'm going to take, you can see how that's sitting nice and that one's not. So I'm going to just pull that corner out and see what I've done. It's probably literally 1 or 2 stitches. Haha, yeah. So get your little handy dandy quick unpick. And it's quite good this is in black so you can actually see, or I can see should I say. So just get your little unpick and then open it up and see what you've actually done. Oh, yep. See, I've gone too close to that edge. So I've caught the lace in. Oh, that wasn't very clever, was it? Okay, I think we're good. get all your bits out of the road and pin. Make sure I've got my finger on it. Need 3 hands. Yep, I think I've got it now. Righty-ho, so I'm just going to re-stitch along there. Oops. I'm just going to back stitch that little bit because I've already cut it, and then turn, and then wait, and then turn, and I think we're good, but we will find out in a minute. So it's not hard to fix it up, but you just have to be a little bit careful if you've cut. Probably should have checked it before I cut. Right, have another look. That's better. That's better. Now we're not caught. Now what I'm going to do is you just put all your corners out and then give it a little press. And I always press from the wrong side because your lining is usually a silkier fabric than your outer. And then all you're going to do is put your number 10 foot back on. You can decide how far away you want to have your top stitching, but the one thing people forget to do, and this is when, this is my opening here, when you've pressed it all, this is when I just pop my little clips on it because I don't like using pins when I'm doing this. I just like to clip it, so I would take time and press the top as well, but I'm not going to. And it just turns under really nicely anyway. But this is where you decide how far you want to top stitch it in. If you have a look at this one, I've edge stitched it very close to the edge, but I could have edge stitched it 6 mils in if I wanted. But I think it's a nice little finish, and I've kind of rolled it a little bit to the wrong side. So it's a nice finish. So for this one, if I go on to here, and you'll see it on the other side anyway, if I move my needle position all the way to the left, it's going to give me, and I can measure it and tell you, pretty much a 4 centimetre top stitch. If I move it 2 back, it'll give me a 2 centimetre. Yeah, that's what I like. I think I'm going to leave it at that. So I didn't reverse there, I don't need to, and then you just go all the way down. Now, when you get to your points and you've got your number 10 edge stitch foot on, what you need to do is when you get to the end, stop the same distance you're sewing, 1 more stitch, lift your foot up, but lift the middle of the foot up so it doesn't get caught in the lace, then turn. Okay? And then just help it through that thick part. And I'm pulling my lace out to the right so that it's going to sit nice and flat. I forgot to push my point out. And then just stitch all the way along. Go. So when you come down to here, lift and turn, and you can go all the way along. I'm just going to go wider to show you if I wanted to go wider. I forgot one thing, lengthen your stitch length. So normally, and this will be good to show you with the coloured thread, normally I would go to 3 and top stitch on 3. So now you can see the difference. And I'll stop there and show you. Okay, so I had it on 2.5 length, but normally when I top stitch I put it on 3 lengths, so it's longer for top stitching, and I obviously would not put black on cream thread. So the difference is you just get a wider top stitch here than a very narrow edge stitch. But it's a nice finish and it's very, very easy. So I don't think this will fit anybody. However, I do have grandchildren with dolls, so I feel this is going to be a little doll's cape. And I'll put a little stud on here and it will go around the doll like that. Very cute. So they're not hard, that's all it is. It's just a rectangle of fabric with a little bit of lace on the edge. Okay, so that's how you make that wrap. Now, the next one I'm going to show you, that's one. The next one I'm going to show you can be made in summer fabric or in winter fabric. So this one is, oh, I'll put it on. This one is a wrap, wouldn't go over this obviously, would go over a dress. But this is a wrap, it hasn't been pressed, that you can just put over any garment and you can make it. This has been made 65 centimetres long and 75 centimetres long, and this one has been made 65 centimetres long. So it's kind of a handy thing if you've got a dress and you're going out and you want to make it a little bit dressier or you want to cover your arms, then this is a really good one to make. And it's very, very easy to make. So I'll show you how to do that and when we come back. And then this is the winter version. So it's exactly the same, but it's a winter version. So you can make it out of lovely, warm wool, or wool and acrylic or whatever you've got, or an old blanket, and you can make a really lovely winter one as well. So when we come back, I'm going to show you how you make those. So I will see you in a minute.